Okay, so there's been a lot of reporting about this, seemingly from the Ben Simmons and Clutch perspective, and most of it's been dead on accurate. Broussard reported, I think before anybody else, that Ben's camp said, you can trade me literally anywhere. The list of teams is anywhere other than Philadelphia. That is 100% accurate. There was another report, however, that, because there's another Clutch client on Philly, Tyrese Maxey, that Clutch Sports and Rich Paul said, we want him out of there also. That is completely inaccurate. That didn't happen. It's just about Ben and Ben's desire to go elsewhere. There's been reporting that Ben has threatened to hold out of training camp. That's true. The new information is this. The Sixers don't actually seem to care. And by that I mean they are not going to trade Ben Simmons because he has said he's not going to be there for training camp. I do not believe, and I have not been led to believe, they think that this is a hollow threat. I think that they're prepared that he might not be there for training camp. But once that was put out there, Wilds, we all started talking about it as if it's a fait accompli that Ben Simmons will not be on the Sixers roster game one of the year. I now truly believe Ben Simmons will be on the Sixers roster game one of the year. Now, does that mean he will be playing? That's more up to Ben than it is anybody else, and Ben can do what he thinks best for him and his career. But the Sixers understand very well that even as down as everyone is on the pairing of Ben and Embiid, and as down as everyone is on the Sixers at this moment, they are just a couple bounces in Game 7 or just an unforgivable collapse in the fourth quarter earlier in the series from being a coin flip with home court advantage to make the NBA Finals. Like, we don't think about it that way anymore, but this pairing was about to be playing the Bucks with home court for Philly to go to the NBA Finals, and what Philly is not going to do is trade their second best player for a package of guys or mediocre draft picks. And so the idea that Philly is going to wait for an all-star or wait for a team as a, for instance, your Celtics, who think they're going to be good, but what if they start off terribly? And they start saying, you know what, as much as we love Jalen and Jason, maybe Jason can use a better running mate that doesn't have so much of the skill redundancy that Tatum and Brown have. A team such as that. Maybe if Denver starts slow, and it's like, man, we need to get better on defense. We've needed to get better on defense for years. Would they make Michael Porter Jr. available? So I don't think this is ending soon. Training camp opens in a few weeks. Ben Simmons will be on the Sixers, barring one of these all-stars coming available, at 3 weeks from now.
Okay, so do you think that he will be on the Sixers in theory, or do you think he actually suits up and puts on a Sixers jersey? Because there's all sorts of things that happen preseason. You have to shoot promos. You have to shoot, like, hey, this is for the calendar. This is a little charity event we're doing. I think it would be very strange if he shows up to any of those. Now, we saw James Harden kind of went the other way, where he's like, all right, I'm going to sort of put it in your face that I want out. I'll be out with a little baby. I'll be giving him honey buns and big bags full of money and a lovely watch, to be honest with you. I'll show up. I'll play well for a few games, and I'll stink it up for a few games. But he kind of had to have a really poor performance where everyone's like, all right, this is too toxic. Let's move. Do you see Ben actually putting on a Sixers jersey? Because I do not.
Listen, I believe that his threat is more than a threat. I believe that he is willing to take this to the limit. I just don't. There's two parts of this. One is, it has been an incredibly long time since we've had an actual NBA player holdout. I remember, 15 years ago, maybe a little longer, Tracy McGrady held out from the Rockets for the first few days of training camp, but he didn't skip any games. Now we have had guys where it hasn't been called a holdout, but guys who had, very curiously timed injuries. It's like, oh, I'm not available. And so, by the way, I'm not accusing anyone of doing that in the future. I'm just saying we know historically that has happened. But guys in the NBA tend not to want to miss game checks. Now, maybe Ben is willing to, and it seems like he's saying he's willing to, and obviously he wants out, and his representation's doing everything they can to get him out. But the Harden situation, Wilds, I think is actually instructive. Because Harden, after playing well for a couple games, dogged it, right? Did that hurt his trade value at all? No.
Just bad press for a while.
Houston maybe took the wrong trade, but did anyone in the league think, oh, James Harden, not a top 10 player anymore? No. So the reason I mention that is even if Ben Simmons isn't playing, or if he isn't playing well, I think the smart people in the league know how good he is. We know what he can't do, but we also know what he can do, right? We know that he creates more three-pointers than any player in the league over the last year. We know he's one of the 3 best defenders in the league. We know what he does well. So I don't think that even if he's not playing, his value is going to plummet, because I think the league knows who he is as a player for good and for bad, which is why I think Philly is willing to have this get more uncomfortable maybe than Houston was willing to have it get.
Yeah, so it's such an interesting story for this reason. When James Harden forced his way out of Houston, the sort of narrative was, you know what? I'm a great player. I did all I could. It's time for a fresh start. And everyone's like, yeah, you're probably right. Houston's not kind of going to contend for a championship. And when AD left New Orleans, like, you know what? I was drafted here. I tried my best. It's time for me to go. And everyone's like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, it's a nice T-shirt. That's all, folks. Okay. So the weirdest part about this Ben story, Nick, is that 2 things. One is that Ben did not necessarily, I don't want to say try his best, but he didn't perform great, and he still wants out.
Correct.
When it's usually the opposite. It's like, you know what? The team is not built around me well enough. It's actually his own doing that is causing him to come out. Reason number 2 is this. And I actually think it's salvageable. We heard from Doc. We heard from Joel after the game. We recently heard from Joel tweets, and was reports out of Rich Paul's camp. You've got reports out of the Sixers camp. We haven't heard from Ben at all. And I don't think that this is totally unfixable if Ben came out and said, you know what, everybody? I had a little bit of a hard time shooting. I let you down, but I've been working this whole summer. I've looked at the statistics. I think we can be a good team, and I think I appreciate the support that you've given me over the years.
That's not going to happen. That's
never going to happen.
That's flatly not going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, so both camps here are entrenched. Ben is entrenched that he is not playing for the Sixers. And the Sixers are entrenched that, okay, that might be your stance, and we can't force you to play, but just you can't force us on when we will trade you. We are going to wait until it is a trade that allows us to stay in the championship contention. And what I think Philly, the one piece of leverage, Jenna, that I think Philly has that nobody has really discussed is, it's not like, let's say Ben Simmons misses the first month of the season while on the Sixers roster. It's not like Philly can't still win at a high level. Now, could you win a championship with that roster without Ben? No. But it's not like their ability to be a top 3 seed in the East or to be in the playoff contention is going to go away if they just have the Sixers roster as is, where Tobias Harris takes a bigger scoring load, Embiid gets to really play his position in full, not have to hang out on the perimeter. Like, they know they can still compete in the beginning of the season, even if Ben's not there. The Rockets knew, all right, well, if Harden's going to give half effort, we're screwed anyway. Like, that's not the situation Philly's in. So I think both camps are very entrenched, but the idea, Wilds, that Ben's going to have a change of heart, that's not happening.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.